yako NDC Amayokuo no Akachi yakasei the National Communication Officer for the party, lawyer Sami Jemfi, address press no. Yanko Famra.
And the incumbent government on issues of electoral malpractices and the manipulation of the electoral process. But what we've seen since last night, even before the commencement of today's general election, is a desperate ruling party, the NPP, which has decided to rather blame the opposition for attempting to rig the election. Blame the opposition for engaging in electoral malpractices and attempts to manipulate the election. This is very uncommon in our body politics. But if the allegations being raised by the New Patriotic Party were even true and grounded in fact, we will not be worried as an opposition party at all. What gives us cause to be concerned is the deliberate falsehood that is consistently being put out by the New Patriotic Party to unnecessarily escalate tensions, unnecessarily incite their goons and thugs to activate their election rigging ploy and to attack innocent civilians. That is what is at play. Deliberate falsehood, calculated at inciting MPP thugs and hoodlums to attack innocent people and to undermine the ongoing process. Now, first of all, the MPP held a press conference yesterday, and then the whole subject of that press conference was an allegation that the NDC constituency secretary for Akachi South had been arrested by some immigration officers for having thumb-printed ballot papers in his possession. Ladies and gentlemen of the media, this allegation is a bare-faced lie. The constituency secretary for the NDC in Akachi South has not been arrested by the police for having in his possession illegal ballot papers which he had thumb-printed for John Dramani Mahama. As a matter of fact, this constituency secretary was found by some immigration officers to have in his possession sample notice of polls. You know that as part of the campaign and voter education, all political parties print notice of polls. We print sample ballot papers, which we use for voter education purposes. And so this officer of the party had in his possession sample ballot papers. These were not ballot papers. On the face of the ballot papers was written boldly, sample ballot paper. And the purpose of a sample ballot paper is voter education. And according to the constituency secretary, he was on his way to a community right on the border to educate voters there. And if you know that enclave very well, you will know that there are Ghanaians who live on the border and just across the border who ply their trade and do their business in Ghana, and vice versa. And that is a very normal phenomenon for all our border towns. So it is never true. And the proof that what the MPP said last night is total falsehood is that they were not able to adduce any evidence. They could not show you the said ballot papers. They could not. So clearly, this is a group of people who have seen that they are losing power and have become so desperate, so vicious as to churn out deliberate propaganda, deliberate falsehood to deceive the unsuspecting public, and through that incite their hooligans to resort to violence to undermine the peace and sanctity of the process currently ongoing. We decided to ignore these frivolous allegations for good reason, because as a political party, we are very focused on what matters on the ground. And we trust in the discernment of Ghanaians to separate lies from the truth. And so we didn't even think that it was important to dignify this frivolous, baseless, concocted fabrication with any response. But it's become necessary for us to set the record straight now, because the NPP clearly is not going to stop. They are going to hold a series of press conferences to churn out nothing but lies, just so they can incite their supporters against the NDC to engage in violence, to manipulate the process, to rig the election, as they have always done. And so, few minutes ago, the NPP held another press conference. And at this press conference, they made two major allegations. One, they claimed that somewhere in the Akache South, in the Kintampo South constituency, the police has arrested an officer of the Electoral Commission for what they describe as tearing off the top parts of the ballot paper for this election. And according to them, that top part which was torn off was the part of the ballot paper which has the image of the NPP presidential candidate, Alhaji Mahamudu Bawumia. So, according to the NPP, this is evidence that the NDC wants to rig the election. Now, we will show you a picture of that ballot paper. And so, if those in charge of the screen are ready, I want that ballot paper projected, and also show us the official statement issued by the Akache South Constituency Secretary responding to the dubious and frivolous allegations that were leveled against him by the NPP yesterday. Now, ladies and gentlemen, even before I show you this, exhibit, the question we should all ask ourselves is, does the Electoral Commission work for the NDC? Emphatically, no. So, if an electoral officer of the EC, okay, so let me take you back. This is the rejoinder issued by the Constituency Secretary of the NDC in the Akache South, Akache North constituency. And he gives a blow-by-blow account of the incident that happened, and the fact that he was not arrested at all, and the fact that the ballot papers in his possession were sample ballot papers meant for voter education. The NPP has not been able to adduce a scintilla of evidence to buttress the allegation they made last night just to create false alarm. They have not been able to do that. And we dare them to come out with the basis of that allegation if they have one. Now let's quickly go to Kintampo South. Show us that torn ballot paper. Show us that torn ballot paper, which the NPP claims is evidence of the NDC rigging the election. The torn ballot paper. Now, as we wait for that, the point I was making is this. The Electoral Commission doesn't work for the NDC. The Electoral Commission is supposed to be an independent constitutional body mandated to conduct public elections in Ghana. So if one officer in the whole of Ghana, out of 40,000 polling stations, one presiding officer of the Electoral Commission, in tearing a particular ballot paper from the ballot booklet, makes a mistake, according to him, and tears not the whole top part of the ballot paper, but a small part of the ballot paper which had the image of Bawumia. How is this? Look at the small part which was torn. It is this ballot paper that the NPP claims is evidence of the NDC rigging plots as far as this election is concerned. Nothing could be further from the truth. Clearly, you can see that this is yet another frivolous allegation by a desperate, failed political party who can smell defeat coming. And so they've resorted to all manner of frivolous allegations just to incite their hooligans and their thugs to engage in violence and manipulate the electoral process. This was not done by an NDC officer. It was done by an Electoral Commission officer. And so if anybody ought to be blamed, it is the Electoral Commission and not the National Democratic Congress. It's as simple as that. In fact, we are even concerned because chances are that that voter might have voted for the NDC candidate. But if this ballot paper is rejected, that goes against the NDC. And so we even have an issue with the Electoral Commission. But of course, when you are dealing with an election being manned by human beings, you must, as a reasonable person, give room for human error. There must be a margin of error. And so you just don't pick one case like this out of 40,000 polling stations and then say that the NDC, which is not responsible for tearing ballot papers for voters, is the one responsible for this. These guys are just wasting everybody's time. Then the last allegation they made this afternoon is that the son of the NDC constituency chairman for Atrema Kwangoma in the Ashanti region has been caught with 76 ballot papers. And so it is evidence that the NDC wants to rig this year's election. Again, this is another frivolous allegation by the NPP. Number one, the young man in question is not even per the preliminary information we have received from our executives in Atrema Kwangoma. He's not even of voting age. He's a minor, number one. Number two, the young man has a mental problem. And number three, the young man was not caught with ballot papers. He was caught with, or they found sample ballot papers in his custody. So here again, we are not talking about ballot papers, but sample ballot papers meant for voter education. And because this is a young guy with, a mental issue, he went on the frolic of his own to this polling station for reasons best known to him. And he was caught. That cannot be evidence of the NDC trying to rig an election with sample ballot papers. Who rigs an election with sample ballot papers? When any reasonable man ought to know that during the sorting process, that sample ballot paper will be flagged as a foreign material and removed from the ballot papers, which will be eventually counted and the votes collated and declared. So clearly, this is another frivolous allegation. These are the three allegations the NPP have been making against the NDC since last night. And you can see that these are vexatious. These allegations are vexatious. They are totally baseless, and they are symptomatic of a political party who are desperate to hold on to power even when they have seen that power is leaving them. And you in the media ought to fact check them and call them to order, because this is deliberate disinformation by the NPP aimed at escalating tensions and inciting their thugs. I want to repeat that for emphasis. To engage in baseless retribution, violence, thuggery, to manipulate the peace and sanctity of the ongoing electoral process. Now, ladies and gentlemen, having dealt with the three frivolous allegations from the NPP, let me now show you real evidence of rigging that the new patriotic party has been found to be engaging. Real evidence. Ladies and gentlemen, earlier this morning, in Pokuase, in the Amasaman constituency, at a hotel called Royal.
Okay, so election headquarters Kokromoti Power. May I say so? I can't fee and rub the payment and the communication officer for the NDC, lawyer Sami Jenfi, and some for Chichim Komono issues are MPP erase and Omaya Hon some for Enshemu and NDC for a Chirimu. Say I can say dear, what's your time not Simano and watch it. And abapa no numno and just say officially about one in abanewie ma yanko pantan Prince Owusu Asiedu Odomos ewo pantan ye no okay but answer na ma mentwa me ho tew emra me ba afi bebu asim na afi akwakohwe me counting ashas ye ne ho se na enkane no eko election headquarters ni ye ba